Trying to quit smoking? You don't have to quit alone. Way to Quit is here if you need help, have questions, or just need to talk. Tips, resources, and coaches are just a phone call away. Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That's 1-800-QUIT-NOW or visit waytoquit.org.
You're not really ready until you're safe. Summer safely and drive calm.
Inside Sources. Next is Now.
Well, one of the things we're looking at on the horizon, what could be next? I mean, what do you do if you want to clear a traffic ticket off your record? Or what about something more serious than that? Often it's a process that is complicated, that is costly, but it is something that we need to think about in terms of what is next. Very pleased to be joined by Sim Gill, Salt Lake County District Attorney. And Sim, thanks for joining us today.
Always a pleasure, Boyd.
Wonderful. This is, to me, this is one of those important things, I think, where there is actually some common ground across the political spectrum of let's not give people free passes, but surely there's got to be a better way to help people move forward after they've made a mistake at some level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is not about giving anybody a free pass, but what is conceived in our notion of justice and our expectations is that once you're held accountable and you paid your debt to society, that we want to welcome you back. Now, what the end result, however, has been that when we start to think about that 1 in 3 Americans are going to have some sort of a criminal record, and then that criminal record lasts with them much longer after they pay their debt for society, and it has the collateral consequences on your ability to get an education, a job, housing, employment. It not only disproportionately impacts them, but can have a generational impact on their families. And so how do we hold people accountable, but then also live up to the ideal of welcoming them back once they've paid their debt to society? And that's something really worthy of us to consider, because otherwise we start picking up the tab as taxpayers on all the other collateral consequences of that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think we don't look at the next level consequences of not being able to have these kinds of things expunged or removed once that debt has been paid or once that penalty has been incurred or that justice has been served. We just keep those, like a scarlet letter. If someone has to hold on to that, the ramifications, you just rattled them off: housing, education, employment. And we know there's Deseret News, I believe, reported that there's over 700,000 people in Utah who have, sometimes it's a decade-old, misdemeanor or reckless driving or something. There's got to be a better way.
No, absolutely. We did a pilot project with my office where we went back 17 years and we looked at the convictions of people who had successfully completed those convictions, and they were entitled to a 1-step or 2-step reduction, which could help them expedite that expungement, and it impacted 14,000 unique individuals. And those who found out about it, called to us in often emotional terms saying, I thought this was something that was a millstone I was going to have around my neck forever, and that I didn't realize that this was something that I could get rid of because that happened 10 years ago or it happened 15 years ago. And what our research shows is that if a person can go 4 to 7 years without an interaction with law enforcement, then they are no more likely to reoffend or engage in criminal behavior than you and I. So I think it's about not giving somebody a free pass, but recognizing the disproportionate collateral consequences, not only to that person, to their families, their earning capacity, and the intergenerational impact it does for these individuals. And if you can't find a place to live, if you can't get a job, then are we not sort of forcing them into the very behavior which we are asking them to be held accountable and be rehabilitated from?
Yeah, a record just definitely should not be a life sentence, and I again appreciate this idea that this does become intergenerational. And if there's anything that I think we all agree on, that America is a redemption story. And this is one of those areas that we simply have got to change the dynamics. It's so complicated in so many. There was, again, coming out of the Deseret News, just looking at a state like Michigan, where only 6.5% of the people who were eligible to clear themselves and having that expunged from their record did it because it was so costly, so time-consuming, so complicated and confusing.
Yes.
We're really sentencing. We're really having more than one sentence on them, and even intergenerationally.
Yeah, and one thing we can be proud of in Utah, we are one of now. At one time, we were one of two states. Now we're one of three, Michigan and Pennsylvania being the other one. Our legislature needs to be commended that we have tried to now create an automatic expungement scheme with the courts. They're trying to bring it online. Salt Lake County, every few months or so, does an expungement sort of fair, for lack of a better term, where we have volunteers from our community, the bar, and the DA's office, and social workers, where we help them fill out the forms, where we let them get our community educated to the process that this is not a millstone or scarlet letter you need to have for the rest of your life, and here's the way you can do that. So Utah is doing a really good job. Our legislature really needs to be commended on that, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and that awareness needs to be raised.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, Sim Gill, Salt Lake County District Attorney, talking about this really important process of being able to move forward. That again, this American redemption story, we have to make sure that's a real thing, and that those who make mistakes, who pay their debt to society, are in a position to actually move forward. And it seems to me, Sim, that often it is the politics that get in the way, because some will say, oh, well, you're giving them a free pass, or you're going easy on crime, and then that creates a left-right debate, and both sides raise money off it and do mailers and campaigns. But we got to get down to the issue.
No, absolutely. And so let's be very clear to those who are joining us that this is not about giving somebody a free pass. This is about being held accountable. This is about being prosecuted and even being convicted. And it is about you paying your debt to society. But then should that sentence be a life sentence? Should that collateral consequences follow you in a disproportionate way? And you're right. The American story is a story of second chances. And it is also a story that's based on our justice system is based on a notion of rehabilitation. And we want to welcome you back as a productive, co-equal member who is a positive contributing member of our community. And so this is not about this, violent offenses or domestic violence cases or those kind of issues, but there are such an overwhelming number of these minor mistakes that are there. And even here's another thing to keep in mind, that when you start to create that rap sheet where you may have an arrest but not be convicted, then, being able to clear those components and to really help those individuals, or other things that we can do. For example, it's called banning the box, where we talk about your previous conviction. If you're a proper candidate and the employer likes you, let's start with your qualification rather than your criminal history. Right. So these are the kind of things we can do, and Utah can be very proud. It's not giving a free pass, but it is saying that punishment and justice can be delivered by being proportionate and making sure that everybody gets a fair and equal chance to be a productive member of our community.
So appreciate your perspective on this, and getting to that right rehabilitation, moving people forward, and making sure. And I'm so pleased that the state of Utah is leading out in this area. And Sim Gill, we know this has been a big part of your platform as you've worked through, that people just should never be defined by their worst moments. We should make sure they're empowered and enabled to have some future finest hours. Sim, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, that's Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill. Always appreciate his perspective on this area. It's so important. These clean slate laws do create space for people who've made mistakes, who've either served their time, paid their penalties, done what they've needed to do so that justice is served, and then they should be able to move on and to move forward. And we have to make sure, as the district attorney pointed out, we've done some really good things here in the state to make that possible so that people can move forward. There is nothing worse than really double sentencing someone, not just for a mistake they made once and were held to account for, but preventing them from moving forward on everything from employment to education to housing. Those are all critical things. So this is an area, where I think the Utah model is leading and working. It's a great model for the country to look at and important for all of us to keep in mind. All right, we're going to step aside for bottom of the hour break. When we come back, just in the last half hour, President Joe Biden has signed the bill making Juneteenth a federal holiday. We'll talk about what he said in that signing, what it means, how we should celebrate. Coming up next on KSL News Radio.
I'm Dave Cawley, host of the podcast Cold. Our brand new second season focuses on the 1985 disappearance of a woman named Joyce Yost. Hear her voice for the first time. That's Cold Season 2, exclusively on Amazon Music.